Leadership has so many facets. Today, I'd like to share with you 11 principles of leadership that have personally shaped my leadership journey. So if you'd like to know what these are, do stick around in today's episode of The Corporate Mechanic. Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Joey and you're here at The Corporate Mechanic, a show that features topics on management and leadership. Now today I have a very nice topic that I'd like to discuss because this is very near to my heart, and this is actually something that shaped my leadership brand, so to speak. So how I became a leader, the things that I do as a leader were very much shaped by these 11 principles. So we'll be talking about 11 principles of leadership today. So saan nga ba nanggaling to? Actually, this started way back when I was in high school. Yes, high school. So that was a gazillion years ago. So when I was in high school, I was into what we call the Citizens Army Training. So for those mga batang 90s like me, alam natin to, dumaan tayo dito. We've all gone through CAT training, back in the day. And as a CAT officer, we were taught different things. A lot of things were taught to us. A lot of things were really drilled into our heads. Things that we needed to remember. Now, one of these things that we needed to remember was these 11 principles of leadership. Okay, it's quite simple. I actually never knew where this came from. I did some research a couple of years back, and I realized that these were some things that were taught in the US Marines. So this came from the Marines, but nonetheless, this is something that I do believe is very crucial and very important and very, how do you call this? It's actually very rewarding if we do it, if we follow these 11 principles of leadership. It applies to any situation. And so whether you're in the corporate world, you're in non-government, or whatever space you are in, just following these principles would really help you as a leader. Okay, so let's begin. Now, these 11 principles go by the mnemonic device. We've always used this mnemonic device known as 4K Sit M Det. Okay, 4K Sit M Det. So what does this mean? So it stands for 4 sentences or phrases that start with letter K, letter M, SIT, MDET. Okay, so that's that. So let's begin with the first one. First principle is know your job. Goes without saying that as a leader, you have to understand what your job is, what your goal is, what is the vision that you need to achieve, what's the goal that you need to achieve. You cannot be a leader if you don't know what your job is, what is your goal in your organization, in your company, or wherever, basically. So what's your job? Know your job. Next, know yourself and seek self-improvement. So not only do you know what you're supposed to do or what you're supposed to achieve, you have to know yourself as well. That means knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing the areas wherein you can actually improve. So it's very important that as a leader, you do not stagnate. You do not say that, oh, I'm just like this. So this is the edge of what I can contribute. No, leaders go beyond that. The whole point of being a leader is really going beyond the norm, being able to go past what is typically accepted. So you need to know yourself, and you need to be able to improve your ability as a leader. Okay. Next, know your men and look after their welfare. So it's very important that as a leader, you are leading people. You cannot be a leader if you have no one to lead. And when you are leading, you have to ensure that the guys that are following you, your followers, which means your team, you know them. You understand them. Not only do you know your own strengths and weaknesses, you also have to know their strengths and weaknesses. You also have to look at their welfare, meaning what is in their best interest. You have to understand that. You have to understand that these are also people that have their own needs, that have their own wants, desires, their own concerns. So it's very important that as a leader, you know them and you look after their welfare. Oftentimes as a leader, we are, and you'll probably hear this, that there are two types of leaders. One is what's called the goal-oriented person, the goal-oriented leader, and the other one is the people person type of leader. The best leader is somebody that can actually do both. Okay? You are looking at the welfare, you're looking at the needs of the people, your team, but then you're also looking at the goal. So that's very important. Okay? Next, keep your men informed. Something that oftentimes leaders fail to do is to tell your team what's going on. It might be something, you know, oftentimes I've seen leaders wherein there's a goal that they want to achieve. He has a plan, the leader has a plan, but in terms of executing that plan, he actually fails to communicate his plan to his team. It's actually a good idea for you as a leader to tell your guys, what are you up to? What's the plan? Where are we headed? Remember, you know, you put yourself in the shoes of your subordinates. Would you follow somebody simply because he says so? Chances are not. You know, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't follow somebody that would just say, hey, follow me. Where are we going? I don't know. I won't tell you, but just follow me. Nuh-uh, I won't be doing that. I'll follow somebody if I understand where he's going, what his plans are. And so conversely, as a leader, you have to keep your men informed. You have to tell them what's going on, what's the plan, where are we headed, what are the challenges, what are the risks. You have to keep open lines of communication with your team. So keep your men informed. Next, set the example. Setting the example is probably the single most important thing that you have to do as a leader. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk as well. If they can't see you actually commit to the things that you are telling them to do, don't ever expect that they will follow you. If you set certain rules in the organization, be the first one to abide by those rules. You are never above your own rules. Okay? Because the moment that you go beyond these rules, beyond what you stated, beyond what you said, you can never expect your people to follow you. You know, a good example would be going to the office. If there's a policy with regards to what time you should be at the office, then you should be the first one to follow that. Don't expect your team to come in early while you come in, you know, lunchtime. That's just wrong. Okay? Alright? Next, instruct your men in accordance with their capabilities. So again, going back to the other principle that I mentioned, wherein you have to know your men, you also need to instruct them appropriately. Meaning, you can't just give an order and then expect everybody to produce an equal amount. You have to understand what are their strengths and weaknesses. You have to understand that each person has its own capabilities. Okay? You cannot, you know, they're not all cut from the same, you know, chopping block. You know, each person is different, and you have to realize that. So when we give orders, we have to ensure that what we're giving is in accordance to the skills and capabilities of the resources. Don't ask somebody to build a house if he's a painter. You can't expect that. Okay? You ask a carpenter to build a house, that's fine. Okay? But if you ask a painter to do that, it's not his skills. He can paint a house, but he can't definitely build a house. So you have to give them work that is in accordance to what they can actually do, so that they can actually succeed. Right? Next, take responsibility for your actions. As a leader, not only do you set the example, you also take responsibility. You also have to make sure that the buck stops here. One thing that people don't like to see in leaders are leaders that keep on saying, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. Okay? Yung dating administrasyon. Ganun, di ba? So, you have to stop doing that. A leader takes responsibility. A leader is the first one to actually admit fault if something is going on. A leader does not shift the blame to the environment, to the circumstances, to his team. And I've seen people who do that. I've seen leaders who actually, throw their team under the bus when something goes wrong. And that's just so sad. Don't do that if you're a leader. Be the first one out there. Be the first one to take the bullet for your team. Be responsible. Okay? Next, make sound and timely decisions. Now, this might sound very simple, but one thing that's important in that statement is that your decisions are, number one, sound, which means you've gone through the process of thinking through that decision. It should not be a decision. When you make decisions as a leader, remember, your decisions impact the whole team. Your decisions impact the organization. So it has to go through a more stringent set of, thinking through. It should not just be based on your feelings. It should not be based on your emotions. Because your decisions carry a lot of weight. So it has to be sound decisions. Also, it has to be timely. Meaning, you don't hold off making decisions until the very last minute. You have to be able to make decisions when the decisions need to be made. Because the longer that you delay making decisions, the harder it becomes for everybody else. So it's not just making the right decisions, making these right decisions at the right time as well. And that's what that means. Okay? Next, develop a sense of responsibility among your subordinates. So it's very important that your team knows that they too are responsible for something. As a leader, you are responsible for everything, but each person in your team has to be responsible for something as well. They have their own deliverable, they have their own task by which you will call upon them to deliver. It's a bad idea that as a leader, and this actually happens, as a leader, you take in everything. Hindi kaya ng tao nyo, so you take in the work. Hindi kaya ng subordinate, so you take in the work. No, that's a bad type of leadership practice. You get your team to be responsible for each of their tasks. And if they can't deliver, you have to do something. You have to intervene in such a way that you can help them deliver. Not just to punish them or whatnot. That's not the point. The point is making them capable of delivering. You have to help them grow as individuals as well, so that later on, they too can become leaders. Okay? Next, ensure, and this is actually one of my favorites, ensure that the job or command is understood, supervised, and accomplished. Very simple. Whenever we provide instructions to our team, it's very, very crucial that, number one, they understood what you told them to do. So how do you do that? How do you check them? You ask them to repeat the order. You ask them to repeat what you wanted them to do in their own words. You have to make sure that they understand it. Don't just say that, oh, I told this guy to do this. Oh, I told that guy to do that. Without really even checking if they actually understood it. You are amiss if you are not ensuring that they do the work properly. Okay? So you make sure that they understand the work. Next, you make sure that they are properly supervised. And when we say we supervise them, it means that we actually check if they're doing it correctly and responding appropriately if there are things that they need to do to improve or to fix the work that they are doing. We don't just let them be. We don't just ask them, oh, what's going on? What's your percent completion? No, you check on their work. You actually see if they're doing it correctly. It's not supervision if you're just twiddling your thumbs and walking all over the place. You actually have to assure them that what they are doing and where they're headed is actually the right way to go. Okay? And then the last part of that is to make sure that the work actually gets accomplished. There's no point in asking somebody to deliver something if it doesn't get delivered. So your goal is to ensure that your team can actually deliver. It's not just making sure that they're doing something. It's making sure that they are delivering. If they're not delivering, then what are they doing, right? So there. And then the last one is to train your men to work as a team. Okay? Train your men to work as a team. So remember that by having a team, the goal is to make sure that the sum is greater than the individual parts combined. So you're making sure that as a group, you can leverage on each other's capabilities, that you can leverage on the collective efforts of the whole team. It's not just, for example, you have a team of 5 people. It's not just each person is doing something independent of one another. Your goal as a leader is to make sure that you can leverage on the whole group, not just each of the individuals. You're not really having a team if they don't work with one another. That's not a team. It's just a set of individuals. Okay? So these are very simple principles that have actually guided me since I was, a young leader. Okay? It helped me become who I am right now, amongst other things, and has helped me teach others as well how to become effective leaders. Okay? So I do hope I was able to share with you something that has really helped me. And, if you have some comments, questions, feel free to write them down, in our comment section. If you have something that you'd like to ask, again, you're very welcome to send us an email or write a comment or whatnot, and we'll be very glad to answer you guys. Okay? Please do subscribe to this channel, hit on the notification button, hit on like, so that you can see more of our videos here at the Corporate Mechanics. Okay? So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day and stay blessed.